Everyone.
Enwei is here today because he's somebody who, like most of us, have changes in our careers, right? Just like COVID-19 is one hiccup in the road for our industry, but in many different ways we have to change careers or even change brands. So Enwei, I have a question for you.
Yeah, go.
I have a question for you. How is it that someone who studied landscaping design ended up working in the hospitality industry?
Cash. No, sorry. Oh, well. So, I studied landscape design in university. Last year in university, beautiful hotel opened and hotel needs hands, basically. And I said, yeah, I'm going to apply for a job. So I went to interview HR and they asked me, what do you know? What can you do? I said, well, I speak Mandarin and English, and what can I do? And she asked for a few more questions, and I love beautiful things, and I love talking to people. So she said, you go work in housekeeping. So that's making beds.
So from landscaping to making beds,
Yes.
it's the same thing.
Very
it's
similar.
The same thing,
Well,
yeah.
it's a much quicker satisfaction, I would say. Less than half an hour, you have beautiful room, clean, spotless, you walk away waiting for inspection. Doing design, you can spend up to 4 or 5 months, and your professor will look at you and say, you're stupid. So I say, I'm going to do this.
Okay, good. So you went from landscaping background to then making beds in hospitality in a hotel, but then you had to do your military and then your internship in NYU when you decided to do your master's in New York. Okay, and I think we have another NYU student here in the audience, so they might have some questions for you. So after moving to NYU, you did your internship at the Waldorf, you were at the Palace, at the Mark, and then you actually came to this property, which is in Beijing, after opening the Regent in Beijing, and this is the opposite house with Swire Group in Beijing. So I need to understand something, Enwei.
Okay.
This is a very luxury property, and how did you go from here to here?
Hey, that was the first, okay?
Hang on. You went totally 360. Totally 360. You left fine dining, luxury hotel operations to go to Chipotle Mexican Grill.
Chopping cilantro.
Chopping cilantro, which is very hard to find in China. So first of all, why did you do that move?
Okay.
Let's start with the why you did that move. This was a hotel manager, by the way. He was a hotel manager at Opposite House in Beijing. And so he's on a trajectory to be a GM. Okay, that means he's on the trajectory to be a GM, and you just totally did a 360. Why did you do that?
We really opened the Opposite House. I was there for 6 years. I think I was the number 8 to join the company, and then we spent a lot of time talking about what we really want to do to create a different experience for hotel guests and also for our partners in the hotel. And being in Beijing, I was in Beijing for 7 years in total. So toward the end of 2013, we just decided it's enough for Beijing. I love this property, but the air quality really bothers me. I just having really bad sinus problem, allergies every year. So it's time to move. And you can probably ask around, that's the year that people move south. Okay, Beijing to Shanghai, Shanghai to Hong Kong, Hong Kong to Singapore. So people just keep on moving. Probably someone end up in Thailand. I just couldn't get too far, so I only moved down to Shanghai. I actually left the hotel without a job waiting for me. I just left Beijing. Coming down to Shanghai, and I asked myself, what can I do or what do I want to do? And I told myself that I don't want to work in just a hotel. If it's a hotel, I want to work in a hotel that's iconic, that's interesting, and I'll be very proud to have that experience on my CV. I did something interesting. And at the same time, I was actually very lucky that during my last few months working at the Opposite House, the mover packed up, the truck left Beijing, so I live in the hotel, 24 hours a day in the hotel. And the founder and CEO of Chipotle at that time, traveled to Asia with the executive team to see the market. And they traveled through Singapore, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Beijing, then on to Seoul.
So they were guests of your hotel.
Yeah, they were guests at the hotel. Very short, actually, 24 hours interaction, And on the way out, I make sure that I was in the lobby to meet Steve Els, the founder and CEO, and I asked him, how was the experience? And he paused. He said, who are you? I say, I'm Enwei, and I'm the hotel manager. Sorry that I missed you upon your arrival. He said, oh yeah, no, your team is amazing. That's what he said. He said, it's actually the best of the whole experience. And I said, oh, fantastic. So exchange contact information, then he left for the private jet. And I moved. And December, down in Shanghai, getting ready for this cold, humid Shanghai weather, and I got a phone call from Chipotle office. They asked me, say, Steve Els, the founder, really enjoyed the experience, hospitality, how people are real in my hotel, and they were asking if I would consider working with the company. So I got a call, then I had interview with them, then they assigned me to a store, not this one. This is the first original Chipotle. Mine is totally not this fancy. This one is like the temple of Chipotle. Everybody would visit this one. My store is very close to Disney Studio, where a lot of Disney people work, and I basically work in the store from chopping cilantro to grilled chicken and cooking rice for 3.5 months.
Good. So you went from being the hotel manager of a hotel operations, and I think it's safe to say that the service that your team provided was a very good reflection of the brand, and how that opened doors for you and for your career. So you made the move to Chipotle, and then because of that move, because of that shift, you had a couple other changes, right? You were part of the opening for our Starbucks. This is the first Starbucks Reserve Roastery here in Shanghai. And you also had a chance, and that was an international brand, you also had a chance to work with a homegrown brand here called Hunter Gatherer. I need to understand, because you've just made really drastic changes from international brands, multinational brands, local brands. What do you think were the hospitality skills that you have that helped make you successful in each of those moves? Because that's a big shuffle.
Right. I think hospitality, one key thing, it's always about connecting people. You connect with your customer, you also connect with your team. Basically, hospitality, doesn't matter which brand, at the end of the day, the interface, it's always the human. So the team that work with me, then they have great interaction with the customer. So I think the same quality that I can bring to, doesn't matter it's Chipotle, Starbucks, or Hunter Gatherer. Doesn't matter it's selling coffee or tea or organic food in this case. That's just a medium, basically. Our team used that to connect with people and to introduce people what, well, in a way, we believe, right? It's a lot of brainwashing, a lot of brand quality, then we call them drinking the Kool-Aid. So basically, we want them to believe what we believe, and basically, it's about the core of what the company truly is about.
Now, that's the key skills that have helped you, and I have a question for you, because a lot of people spend most of their career with one brand, right? And you kind of have the Kool-Aid of one brand, and you've been brainwashed for one brand. So what challenges did you face when you had to now immerse yourself into new cultures, new brands, new brand identities, new brand voice? What were the challenges that you faced?
A lot of times, there's so many different angles and dynamic comes to a brand. And I normally pick up a few important ones that's meaningful for customer and also to the team, actually. Because if the team that I work with in Starbucks, we call everybody partners, if the partners actually don't care about it, then it's not going to go anywhere. So I think the important thing is I always pick up a few key points that means a lot to myself and also can bring meaningful impacts onto our team. Then they love it, they enjoyed it. I think one amazing thing that, let's say Starbucks, for example, the most important events of every year, the company called that Origin Trip. It's a trip to take partners to see coffee farms around the world. And not just to visit them, it's actually to work with the farmers. We actually plant coffees, harvest coffee, process coffee. At the end, you see them load up the coffee beans in a truck. I was actually very lucky to be part of the trip last year to Sumatra. It was hard work. It was sitting in the car, driving on the cliff, and then the other side of the road just like down the cliff, and then arrive at a coffee farm and then spending hours with them in very hot summer days. And at the end, you really connect with coffee. And then everyone that was the trip from China and Taiwan. And all those partners get to come back to tell a life story with the customer. And they become the best ambassador. So they believe in that coffee beans from farm to the cup. And then from that, they actually connect with other customers.
Okay, so that's the experience for the executive team.
No. It's actually
Everybody?
from barista to, that year, CEO didn't come with us. So I probably was one of the most senior ones on the trip. But then we actually spent time with mostly barista, actually.
And you're taking your line employees to immerse fully. And that's exactly my question because, corporate office usually has their brand department, right? The corporate office has their brand department and they push down the initiatives and the brand identity to the properties. And then the properties have to push that down into their teams, their branding, their brand voice. But then when you ask a line employee, have you been to the website? Do you know why we have the verbiage, why we wear the uniform, why we chose this furniture? That's very difficult to kind of translate down. A lot of companies don't make the investment in frontline staff the way that maybe Starbucks has done in your experience. What are some of the other best practices do you think that properties can take to instill brand into every level of the organization?
I think, I came from operation background. So for me, it's really to look into every single step of how a guest would experience. So from making the reservation, back then it was a phone call. Now it's probably just clicking phones, then you make a booking, then you don't talk to anyone. But then you eventually will meet someone, doesn't matter at the airport or at the front door of your hotel or resorts. And if you really go through that journey, you realize one thing. I remember there was one company that I work at, and it's called, it's all about luxury in all senses. Beautiful to read that line, but you're like, what does that mean? And then one time, I met up with my airport host at Beijing airport, not that hotel, the other hotel, and I look at the uniform of my airport host, and the white shirt, the collar was totally dirty because his job is only at the airport, and nobody cares about him basically. And I actually stopped. I said, hey, I actually work at the hotel. I'm actually not a guest, although they picked me up. And I said, so when was last time anyone provide you with a fresh uniform? He said, I don't have time. So I said, then I went back to the hotel. Then we start changing the whole sequence of things should happen, right? Why can't we have the first car drive out to the airport with the airport host? So a lot of times
especially if luxury, the motto, right, was
Exactly.
luxury of all senses, and we can't even get the uniform right.
And the driver probably just had garlic at lunchtime too. No, so we actually, from that on, we actually did a lot of small changes, and then we start changing the way that they arrive at the airport, make sure that they all look fresh every morning. We actually have breath mint in the car, also for the guests and also for the driver.
Yeah.
And those things that if you, as a hotelier, you experience once, you actually feel how the guests would look at every single step.
Yes.
Then you actually, for me, I always say that I'm trying to find a solution for partners because they probably don't know, because they never had the luxury to live a life like that.
Or stay in one of our luxury hotels, or dine in one of our fine dining restaurants, or use any of our products.
Exactly.
But that problem that happens with, the big identity of the brand and the marketing looks beautiful and Instagram is gorgeous, but the airport representative is filthy, right? The clothes, the uniform, the verbiage. That breakdown, do you think that's an onboarding issue or a leadership issue?
Tough
there's
question.
HR
Tough
people
question.
here. There's HR people here, and there's obstacle. But
I normally experience. I normally say the pre-opening team is the strongest team, because that's the time that hotel invests a lot of effort to make sure everybody's on board, and then you actually get to learn the best way. You have enough time to learn, and then suddenly hotel into operation. Then you have very busy hotel to run, and then people come and go, and you're like, sorry, no dirty words. You realize I need to hire people, and then you hire people. Then you give them 2 hours training, then you put them on the floor. So they missed the opportunity to really learn what's the brand about.
So how do you fix that?
Is there any hotel investor here? Well, it's actually don't hire people only when you need them. I always,
Yes.
especially running luxury hotels, I normally pack my team a little bit more. And in China, we have the luxury, a lot of hotel schools, students also want to try to work in a hotel. Take the interns, take the trainees as your extra. I never count them as my real bodies. Then you actually have surplus of workforce, then it's very easy. You can actually have enough training hours, make sure it happens. And then the training hours need to be meaningful for them as well. Don't just fill out the sign-up sheets and then that the training doesn't mean anything anymore.
I think a lot of us that have had opportunity to do pre-openings, right? We've been on pre-opening teams. We know that energy. We know that feel of what the brand is really about. It's very alive. But then the GM leaves. The next GM leaves. It's 10 years later, right? And so I think, what do you think, how can that be prevented? In your experience, because you've been part of these big international brands, they've done pre-openings, then you've been in part of like the startup culture with Hunter Gatherer, for example, and even now with your new role, right? We're going to talk about that here shortly, but how do you prevent that?
Well, I think from a company point of view, make sure that you get to know the GM before you hire them. And as us working in the hotel industry, make sure you love the brand. For me, I had the luxury of picking which company that I want to work with. And I really spend time to meet them. I talk to people working in the company. I read the book. I read the Howard Schultz's book about Starbucks before I actually say, yes, I want to work with the company because it's a company that I think they have the right value and everything. And by doing that, I think you will have, if you really get to know your GM or if the GM knows the company or the brand longer, then there's opportunity of sticking longer. One company is doing their interview really, really amazing is Apple. Apple spent a lot of time get to know their candidates, and then they also want the candidates get to understand Apple. What's Apple about? They will spend time to make sure that you work in the store before you even have the offer in hand. So you experience what you will experience when you actually have the job.
So now you're with JA Hotels and Resorts.
Mm-hmm.
Not only is this a brand that's new to China, so for those of you that don't know, JA is based in the United Arab Emirates. We're familiar, we used to work and live in Dubai, but they are now coming into China, and Enwei is overseeing all of the openings and projects under their umbrella here in China. So this is a new entrant to the market. You're even creating a brand new brand for JA Hotels. What is your strategy? Because this is a unique time as well for COVID here in our industry. So what is your strategy about creating this brand and research that you need to do to make sure this brand is going to be suitable for the market?
What we're creating is actually, I normally tell, like during the process, I normally say, let's take out the noise, right? Let's just only focus on the things that we think we're going to make it right. So this time we're actually creating a property, a brand that's only focused for Gen Z. I'm totally not a focused client anymore. So it's a hotel. It's a hotel without a theme. Actually, it's not a theme about music nor gaming. It's just simply create a space that Gen Z would enjoy. And more than that, it's actually from go back to how they make a booking, how they want to arrive at the hotel. So we actually come up with a lot of scenarios of how they would want to utilize the space. And then can we actually provide them, when I'm talking about Gen Z, I'm not talking about those rich second generation. I'm talking about someone probably only make 6,000 to 8,000 RMB a month, and then they still want to travel. They actually love traveling domestically, especially now with the speed rail in China. So we actually want to target those people to create a I call that experience a micro luxury experience. So it's very, very affordable, but then you still have amazing bedding and shower. You still have beautiful restaurants. You can have food that you understand. It's not pretentious. It's simply just the interaction that you want is there. But if you don't want, because you probably all noticed that a lot of Gen Z or 00后, basically they spend more time on their phone than talking to real human. So we are basically building a hotel experience. Basically, when they want to, we are there. If they don't want to talk to us, then they can text us or operate everything on their phone if they want to. So that's what we're doing, and yes, Q4 maybe. Let's see.
And so, but why did you come back to hotels? You've been in the F&B world and picking coffee beans and organic farms and all these things. Why did you come back to the hotel? It's just in your blood.
It is actually. It sounds corny, but it is actually. I love what I did this past 6-7 years, venturing out to bigger chain restaurants operation and coffee world, and just October last year, driving in the North America, and I realized I love hotel. I want to come back to hotel. I want to do something again. I'm ready to join a company to do something interesting again.
Hang on. There are many people that have this burnout feeling, right? And they say, I hate hotels. I don't want to work here anymore. I never have a day off. I don't. And then they have this change, and then you realize you do love it. You do love it. And sometimes it's going out and seeing what else is out there. It gives you a whole different perspective, right?
Well, it's I think part of it is I want to learn something during the past few years, and I did it. I had a great fun working in different bigger companies and talking to founders and CEOs.
And there's so much stuff going on in other industries, right?
Absolutely.
That we have no idea about in the hotels sometimes. We just know our brand.
And then now I get to take that, come back to
Yes.
try it differently in hotel.
Yeah, I know. So you are like energized and refreshed and ready to do this new brand for JA Hotels. What would you do differently about your career?
Well, I think, to be honest, that a lot of times that hotelier has the luxury of working under a roof, that under that roof you actually have everything. You have your own accountant, you have your own HR, and it's very, very easy to get through the system to talk to people. Working in bigger company, it's very, very different. You have a project, and then you need to get through, I don't know, 200 other people to all agree on the project.
Is that scary for you?
Sometimes it's also great satisfaction when everybody suddenly look at you. It's like, how come we never thought about it? Hotel tend to solve problems a lot easier because you're all in the same room, in the same building. Well, Ronan's a lot of buildings. Then you actually solve the problem altogether. In big office, you actually need to a lot of cross-function meetings to get through it. Scary? Probably not. But
What was the biggest challenge you had with that? If you have an example, maybe you could share with us.
A very small but fun example. We're trying to create a cocktail bar at the Roastery, and one of the ingredients is Sichuan pepper. And anyone working in hotel would have Sichuan pepper in any kitchen or at the bar. The regulatory team at Starbucks simply say, no, you cannot use it. It's not allowed to use in beverage. And I said, now you need to tell me why, right? Because I can travel to 99 bars in Shanghai and no one would say no to put Sichuan pepper on the cocktail. And then regular teams say, basically, you need to sanitize this, you need to do this, and you have to do this, then you can do this. And I said, if I did all this, then my Sichuan pepper has no flavor. So basically, they need to, then they actually went back to check on FDA, and then FDA, in China, it's all about which district of Laoshi, right? Yeah. So the Laoshi at the end would tell you, actually, you don't need to do this. So basically, just like as a hotelier, we work, and then it's kind of street smart in that sense. We just simply say, no, there's no way. And then at the end, I proved them it's actually possible to do it. It's actually a lot of those stories that actually happens in the past few years that I work in very, very different environments. And of course, sometimes I also make mistake because what can get it done in hotel doesn't mean you can get it done in a bigger system. And in Chipotle, it was a system of 2,000 stores cooking the same food in different region of America and Europe. And to think it's very, very easy in a freestanding hotels or a chain hotel, it's actually very different to produce the same thing in 2,000 locations and all by hand, actually.
So I think there's a lot of us, especially now, that are going to be going through job transitions or moving to new brands or starting their own companies, whatever the case may be. What do you think they can do to prepare themselves for that, to kind of overcome those challenges that happen when you move to new brands or even to new roles?
Sometimes, actually, we all need to be a little bit selfish to figure out what we really want in the following few years, and then what you need, and what can you bring to the next job or the next company, but make sure that you don't. I said don't do it for the money. Do it for the passion. If you love the company, if you love what you're doing, and then try it. I always do a little bit more research. I talk to people. I even watch a lot of YouTube video to see how people talk about this brand. So make sure you do enough research. Talk to real people that already in the company to understand, to listen to how they feel about that environment, and ask yourself that what can you actually learn more in the next job, and do you have the right partners in the same organization that can help you as well? To be honest, when I joined Starbucks, I had a sit down with CEO, and then she asked me questions, super tough questions, and basically I was very, very frank to her. I said, I know all this, but then what you're doing, I have no clue. To be honest, I drink coffee. I drink a lot of Starbucks. Other than that, I make very simple coffee. And then, but she said those are easy. We can actually have you learn all those with us, but what you bring to the team is very, very different. So
what you bring to the team are hospitality skills.
Exactly.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
yes.
It is. At the end of the day, is to take care of. It's very simple. Is take care of your own team, and then they will take care of the customer in the hotel environment.
Correct. And it comes back to the people, and that's what we are trained to do. That's what we are trained to do. So it helped you to make a very successful career with different brands. And I want to give a chance to open for questions to the audience. Anyone? And please be mean. Be tough on him. Be tough on him. Any questions that you have? Because I know a lot of you are also possibly going through a similar experience or have had similar career transitions. So we welcome all questions.
Hi, Enwei. My name is Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
I worked for a hotel for many years. I did the pre-opening project as well. I'm going to NYU, so we're alums. My question would be how the JA Hotel is going to penetrate the Generation Z populations, especially for China. Because I can tell many hotel corporations like Marriott or other brands like Hyatt, they were trying to get the marketing share on this specific generation, but it's very hard for them to do because I would say as a Generation Z or as a Generation Y, I don't think they know us very well. So how would you lead the JA Hotels to do this for a brand
Do you
from?
know Generation Z?
I don't even know if I have any friends who's in. No, sorry. That's actually a great discussion we had just last week. We had a long-term partnership with a PR company, and then we're talking about how do we do the pre-opening or PR campaign and everything. And we actually challenged them the same questions. I said a press event simply won't do the job, right? If I invite Condé Nast Traveler and they come to experience your hotel, and then your focus group don't even read that magazine anymore. They don't even ever pick up a magazine. So, right?
Everything's on the phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we said, hey, first thing is the design and everything. That's easy, right? So the design, the experience, the interface, that we can all get it done, make sure that what they like to experience will be there, that we have the luxury of going through the process already. But then when we get the hotel to be ready to open, then we're actually talking about how do you get the focus customer, how do you get them to know you? Is that right?
Well, especially because you're not even going to start in Shanghai.
No, we're actually starting in Shenyang. So for that, we're actually talking about, hey, can we actually work with snowboarding company or gaming industry, and then we can actually do events or do influencer instead of spending a lot of money on press. Of course, we still need to do a little bit of press here and there, but then actually shift that effort and money to where those end clients would actually receive the information. A lot of times that they actually react quite differently. We also say that, I hate the term Wang Hong, but then that was actually, if you create the experience or the space correctly, they show up by themselves. Correct. You actually don't need to pay them anymore.
Good question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.
Hi, Enwei. My name is Ying Powers. I work in architecture and hospitality photography. During this wonderful interview, we got to learn a lot about your transitions between different types of companies, different industry. I want to take it one step further. Elizabeth mentioned that you were you majored in urban planning and design.
Landscape.
Oh, landscape in school. So I want to ask you, how do you think your study from back in the day, how did it influence your career? Yeah.
A lot, actually. I think a lot of hotelier has the same quality of, we care about quality a lot. You can actually walk through a space knowing if the general managers or the hotel managers care about their environment, right? Is the furniture placed in the right place? Are the light fixture actually has the right warmth to create the ambiance? So design does help, I have to say. And several times that I worked with a different engineer or design team, they were actually surprised what I pick up from the meeting with them or walking through the properties with them. So those helps, actually.
I think that's a great question, Ing, because this is another skill that we take for granted as hospitality professionals, right? The ability to train your eye to those details. And that ability to train your eye is what...
We talked about that once.
Yeah, we did talk about those things. But that ability to train your eye, to get a feel for a space, those are things that are so important in any industry. Yeah.
I did one exercise. Love to share this. Probably a lot of hotel would do that already. I have exercise with my team at the Roastery. Roastery being 2,800 square meter. I normally do one thing is I will pull them to be right next to me, and I ask them, what can you see that's actually off, right? Not in the right place. A lot of times that you see that, you can also see body language from a customer. You can actually see if the space is too cold or too warm. A lot of times because our team are running around the space, they think it's okay. But for a customer sitting down to enjoy a coffee or tea for 40 minutes, 50 minutes, the space might be too cold for them. So reading body language, reading your environment actually helps a lot. Yeah.
Applicable to every industry. One more question. Oh, they're being mean to you, Enwei. Lots of questions coming.
Hi, Enwei, and my name is Jenny, and I'm from very different area, hospital management. So I'm basically in charge of digitalizing. It's a more logical, technical area instead of a human touch. That's people commonly understand this way. So I understand from your personal experience. You have been very successful, you have been very passionate with all the changes and moving between different brands. So my question is, you're talking about the design, talking about the success of design and process. So what is the main success characteristic about making design thinking successful?
Wow.
This is Dr. Jenny Shao. Dr. Jenny Shao, she's a physician as well.
That's, I think a lot of times that the operator actually get involved a bit too late. Go back to the experience that we had at the opposite house. During the whole architectural design process and also the whole brand process, SOP design process, the operator already get there already. So we arrive early. We actually get to sit down with Kenko Kuma's team to talk about how we want to utilize the space. A lot of times, especially for famous architects, they want the space to be striking. But then the operator would actually look at the details like, how do I ever clean that corner that I can never get to? So I think there's a fine balance of amazing design, but then the operator actually need to come in to do a lot of back and forth with them as well. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult. For your experience, might be totally the other extreme, right? Because comes to hotel, especially for digital experience, that's actually a totally different game.
Yeah, but it's also, it takes the same, and you need operators to use it. You need the operators to use it to give you that feedback.
For example, if you're actually designing the whole, WeChat program for a patient, and a lot of times you simply don't want to click through 15 steps to get to an appointment, then...
So you're planning to use this in the hospitals, Right.
I'm managing the hospitals and group of hospitals and private healthcare. So just thinking about the similarity between these two different industries, or somehow they can be merged, somehow they can be shared, somehow they can be partners as well. So this is just a question for everyone to discuss.
Well, do you think that as for physicians using this interface, right, it's we're talking about the same thing in hotels, right? It's that we're kind of taking out the people part. And we're all talking on the phone. People are just more comfortable with using the phone or the app. How do you keep the hospitality and the focus on the patient or your guest in the hospitals?
Wow, this is I think it's transforming. And before we're talking about hospital, you go to hospital, see doctors, see nurses, and because of this limited medical resource, healthcare resource, people complaining. Okay, we're talking about accessibility. Mobility is very, very hard to meet. Now we're talking about technology. I'll provide you technology with super fast 5G, 4G, and we provide computer devices. So we'll make a lot of healthcare more cost effective. However, when we're talking about next 5 years, 10 years, we were talking about, human touch. Eventually, we expecting human-to-human service instead of, I'm talking to machine. On the other end, maybe it's just a program to answer my question. So I think this is the balance between what is the real service, what is the technology, what is automation. And I think probably in hospitality you have similar arguments, debating, as well as in daily process. Just for
Exactly.
question to discuss.
No, it is actually how much is too much, right? Or like how far can we push that boundary? Yeah.
And for your brand, right? What is your brand going to be known for through this whole technical component? I think that's also a challenge, an existential challenge for a lot of the hotel companies because they're not able to adapt as quickly. You're able to now create from zero a brand, but what about the hotels that really have to shuffle?
Yeah. I think still need to stick to what's the core. JA is famous for the experience. So we will still continue to do that, even on the digital or non-digital side. So you still need to be true to your brand, actually.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Victor. I'm a hotel veteran as well. So I have a question for you. Hotels are expensive to build. They are expensive to run. And the pressure from investors to generate profitability out of hotels is increasing. Now with the virus, it's going to get even worse. So how do you plan to measure the famous return on investment on your human capital?
Actually, I love this discussion. This discussion we had a lot at Starbucks. Actually, it's all about efficiency, right? But then at the end, you're looking at how much you can actually use anything high tech to help with efficiency. I think I had a discussion with Elizabeth is how the team at Starbucks would look at launching one product, and then we would actually be in the mock store to make sure that efficiency is not being impacted. Because every product you actually adding ingredient, removing ingredient, and then we're talking about how the movements no more than 1.5 meters. You don't want the team to move that far. Hotels, we don't do that. Unfortunately, we actually don't. I remember I worked with the Italian chef, and then he would just crazily come up with any ideas, and then his kitchen is totally out of shape because the ingredients are left and right, the co-kitchen, and then another team would go in to reset for him. And I think that there's a lot of different way to actually make efficiency higher. Like, for example, the room that we're designing right now, designer finished it, and then in the mock-up room, the discussion that we had, it's not about is it pretty or not. It is pretty, but our team went in there to look at the efficiency, make sure that can be clean quick enough, and then how can we actually look at the corners and everything to actually make sure housekeeper can actually get in and out, but then make sure it's super clean. So there's a lot of way that we can still do, but then the argument of is it being profitable or not, I think if we cannot just always talking about experience, but then how can we actually make sure that your team can actually operate in very high efficiency. Where should they be at which time of the day? In Hunter Gather, we also did the exercise of going to the store to actually have a clipboard, very old-fashioned, but we actually write down which person and which hour is doing what. And then we actually reshuffle every sequence of work. And you realize you can actually cut down 2 people in the kitchen in the 16 hours of operation, just simply by doing that. But a lot of chefs doesn't have the capability of doing this. You actually, we were lucky at Hunter Gather at that time. We have someone study food science, and her brain is totally like an Excel. And she told us to do this, and then we have a team of 5 people standing different part of the kitchen to actually break down the whole kitchen in one day.
And that was a skill you learned because you left the hotel and went and learned it from other organizations. That's the value of making those changes. You could bring it back to your operation. Another question. The chef was not happy.
Hi, I'm Winter. So I want to more focus on the career path. So you mentioned you start in the hotel as a housekeeper. So how can you manage to go into the luxury hotel, be a manager, and also do the research to choose the company that you want to be in? So what's the key success for you to be changing your career path? It's not as much as it sounds easy, but I do think you work a lot behind this talk. So I want to know your secret for yourselves.
There's no secret. It's called 20 years. No. No. I love every opportunity, every job that I had, I have to say. From the really first job was really housekeeper. And then I work in a lot of different departments. And I just like I mentioned earlier, I always ask myself, what did I get? What did I learn? And then I make sure that I carry that to my next opportunity with me as well. So you just keep on building your capability of doing more and more things. But I think the most important thing is I love working with people. So I would never leave hospitality industry because this is the industry that I get to work with real human beings. Doesn't matter if I'm in the property or not in the property.
So you didn't actually plan anything to jumping or go higher?
No.
You just go with the opportunity comes to you?
Yeah.
Can I? Sorry, I'm Caroline, because I'm actually asking the pretty much similar questions. I'm on the winter. So my question is, because you know that nowadays, in China, so many job opportunities, but then also we have so many candidates. When the headhunter trying to find somebody, and they really want somebody who has exactly the same experience. So, but you're looking at you, although you say you have hospitality, but still from different backgrounds, hotel, restaurants or something else. So how do you really, stand out from those candidates? So this is talking probably a little bit about the interview skill sets, but then also what kind of skill set, talent you can approve, and also to really convince those, those interviewer.
I don't know. I think.
Why did they hire you?
I don't know.
Why did they
Why did they hire you?
Why did they hire
exactly.
you?
I think. Well, I think one important thing is I never pretend I know something. If I don't know something, I say I don't know. I can find out, and I'm more than happy to learn about it. So I love working in the environment that I can grow I always say that I grow people and I bring my own tribe. So I think I love those working environments. So I guess I don't fit for all companies, I have to say. Like companies who care about people culture, I fit in a lot better. And I just I normally don't even, I actually prep for interview today, but when I go for job interview, I normally don't even prepare. I just go as who I am, because it's a two-way, right? You pick a job, and then the company also pick great candidates. So you don't need to be someone else.
I think a lot of people are afraid, right? They see a job, it's available, but they don't even apply because they see all the criteria that I don't have that, I don't have that, I don't have that. They're not gonna hire me. So,
Very true.
So when you think about like Starbucks, I've never been a barista. I've never done this. I've never picked coffee beans. So I think it's important, is to say is that, like we always say, is we hire for the person in hospitality, right? We say we hire for the person because they're passionate about it, they love it. We'll teach you everything else. We'll teach you everything else.
I have 2 hands. I can do housekeeper, right?
But it's important not to be afraid to just try, because the skills that we have really set us up to be successful. One last question.
Hi, it was a very nice, listening to the talk. My name is Ishu, and I'm from real estate background. I have a question regarding the, the business models. So right now, the pandemic, we still don't know when the second wave or even the third wave will hit us, and I believe all industries are going to change. The business travel is down. So do you foresee a model wherein right now the hotels, primarily they used to drive most of the revenue from room rents, but it's going to change to say food and beverage, bringing most of the revenue. And also, right now maybe the food and beverage venues inside the hotel are more designed for their in-house guests and the people they bring in. But maybe they're gonna change the model to maybe they want to bring people who are maybe say living 5 kilometers in the radius. They want to come to and have meal there. Do you see those changes happening? And then your thoughts on that?
It's actually not. It's not happening. It's already happened actually. At 2007, when we were thinking of opening the opposite house, one thing that we always wanted to do is to make sure that the restaurants are very, very popular for local Beijing people, not just for hotel guests. Because I think hotel used to be, back in the 20s and 30s, hotels are the place to meet people, right? You actually, we sort of lose that charm because luxury hotels price the restaurant too high, and then no one can afford. You only go to hotel restaurants for your special events or your anniversaries. Then in 2007, when we were thinking how we want the opposite house to be, we talk about that a lot, is to make sure that restaurants get popular even before the hotel rooms. So then local people come, you have beautiful, trendy people enjoy your hotel, then they bring other people. And then nowadays, going back to post-COVID, still during COVID, the new hotels that we're opening, we want the dining space to be very, very affordable, small margin, but still making money. But then we want local young kids can actually come in for a quick buy before they head out or on the way home. And then, so basically, go back to real estate, really look at what's around you. And then if you're sharing office building, then make sure that you actually have different day parts that can actually satisfy a lot of different reasons. And if people come in to your restaurants to get a sandwich for $50, 50 kwai, instead of going across the street to 7-Eleven or no, not 7-Eleven. Family Mart, sorry, for 20 kwai a meal, then there's opportunity, right? But then why do they decide to spend this 50 kwai with you, or even to get a coffee at 22 kwai with you instead of ordering lock-in? So there's a lot of opportunity, and there's a lot of different ways the hotel can do differently. But to come back to you, food costs, labor costs, everything all builds up. So how do you actually build a very high efficient, semi-automatic kitchen would help a lot as well.
And it comes back to design, right? We're talking about design and getting the operators involved so they can give that real feedback. This is what the market wants. This is what we need to be efficient, and the design has to work. Right?
But are you getting any pushback from the marketing? Like they say, this dilutes our brand. We don't want, say, students or, office workers coming in.
It's a new thing. We're very lucky. We're actually creating something new. So that's actually from the very early on. We say we actually never want to sell something too expensive, right? Because we're talking about in a tier 2 city, you can easily to have a room like that for 300 kwai. Then those people simply will not spend too much to eat a meal. Then we're talking about something very balanced, but then still affordable for them.
Thank you for your question, and thank you, Enwei, for the inspiration that you have shared with us today and your experience. We appreciate having you here today.
Thank you.